Welcome again to the Rick Helps Real Estate Show. If this is your first time, I go over the numbers from the Arizona real estate market. We take a look at what's trending. We don't talk a lot about what it's going to be like next year, but I kind of wanted to address the topic today and say, well, what if? Because right now, there's so much negative news out there. There's so much anxiety that we're just wrapping our head around it. And I'm sitting here looking at some of the numbers. I'm thinking, well, what if this one moves? What if that one moves? How bad can this get? What if the bad news doesn't materialize? Because right now, what we're seeing is a lot of this, and that is investor hesitation grows as market uncertainty lingers. Now, for those of you that are wanting to buy, that's not bad news. That's good news. Because remember, back in the high bid days of 2021, it was investors that were knocking you out. Now those investors that you were competing with are saying, sitting this one out for a while because they don't see the math working. They're not seeing the return on investment helping them when they're out buying rentals. So that helps you as a buyer. And we're seeing here that our inventory is increasing ever so much, going up to about 26,362. That'll be higher next week. Not nearly as high as we've seen in years past. If we just sit here and go back to 2009, I mean, look at that. You know, started the year at well over 51,000 homes. But here's what you need to do. You need to look at where prices are. You need to know where you want to be and whether or not that fits. And one of my favorite YouTubers is Michael Zuber, one rental at a time. And he says, do the homework, do the math, and see if it fits in your buy box. In other words, he's very encouraging to say, and he's talking for people that are buying properties to use as rentals. Don't buy until the math doesn't work. Well, you should take the same approach. Don't sell unless the math works. If you're going to buy and you're waiting, you need to know what you're waiting for. Some of you have said, I'm not buying until the price gets down to $150 a square foot. Okay. Are you tracking it? Are you looking in different areas? Are you seeing where it's trending? Or just sitting back and waiting for it to show up on channel 12? So if you're seriously waiting for the prices to come down to $150 a square foot, where are they today? How much farther do you need to go? Have that number readily in front of you and track it. Because usually what happens is when an opportunity comes up where that target's actually there, people weren't paying attention and they're too scared. I was talking with a great gentleman this morning and we were talking about greedy sellers. And he said, there's always greed. That's what makes the world go round. You got people that want this much for what they're trying to sell, even if it's a car, and buyers that don't want to pay more than $1. And we meet somewhere in the middle. That's the way the world goes around. It's not greedy sellers. It's everybody wants top dollar and everybody wants a bargain. That's never going to change. That's what drives supply and demand. So blaming a rising real estate market on sellers just being too greedy, that's just too much of a generalized statement. But right now we are seeing some relief for buyers, not so much for sellers, but again, depends on the neighborhood, and I'll show you in just a moment. But take a look at this median sales price. Okay, we were sitting here in March of 460, and today 447, so down $13,000 on the median sales price. That's a pretty good downward slope there. And I'm going to go back a few years on this chart, 2020, 2019, 2018. And go down to some pre-pandemic levels. One of the things you could do if you wanted to do some trend analysis is draw a line, something like this, and say, okay, if we continued this normal trajectory and we missed the silly season, where would we be if we didn't have all this nonsense here? Maybe we'd be right here. And where does that land? That lands with median sales price about 400,000. That's a pretty simple way to look at the market. And if that's what you're targeting, then you have to say, okay, when do I think we're going to get there? And if we get there, will I recognize it? For sellers saying, I'm pulling my house off the market, I'm going to wait for things to get better, then you're going to want to concentrate on this right now. And this is our mortgage rates right now. Today, sitting at an average of 6.92. And you're going to want to watch the 10-year treasuries. You're going to want to see where they're headed. Try not to get too wrapped around what the Fed chairman says, because if we've proved on this show many times, the day that he speaks and says we have a rate cut, rates always go up that day. They eventually kind of turn around and come back down. But it's the bond traders that are controlling mortgage rates, not so much Chairman Powell. Now, we're lucky in our market. We've got this Cromford Market Index, which is kind of a leading indicator. And guess what? It's going down, and it has been going down into what's classified now in total in our market as a buyer's market, 78.6. But this doesn't tell you that it's an affordable market. And that's something that is open for debate too, because we had a comment yesterday saying we're no longer affordable. Like, well, we're more affordable than Seattle, and Seattle values went up 5% last month. So what is affordable? California hasn't been affordable for 20 years, and their real estate values went up last month. Now I just showed you a chart where ours went down. Right now, you've got all this anxiety over tariffs. Is it warranted? Time will tell. I'm not going to make one prediction one way or another. I've got some feelings, good feelings on the tariffs, some bad feelings on how tariffs are handled. I could keep myself up all night. I'm just like, I'm going to, put some popcorn on, sit back and watch and see what's going on. But in March, buyers in mass said, I'm out. I'm sitting this one out. And it's showing up in the numbers, showing up with investors, showing up with buyers, showing up with sellers. The only reason inventory is climbing is because sellers or buyers have backed off. It's not because more people are listing their houses. It's the simple fact that there's just not enough volume. Now, the Dow Jones was beat up pretty bad, but you can see as of this recording today, it's going up pretty good. Well, went up 5 points, but it's up 0.1%. What if that takes off and goes off like crazy? What if something happens and the stock market ends up being wildly higher again? Because when you look at M2, which is our money supply, it's growing. People are saying, oh, we're broke. There's no money out there. I disagree. There's a lot of money out there. The money supply in our country this is all money that's out there, stocks, bonds, checking, savings. It's not shrinking, my friends. It's growing. Here's where it spiked up when they shot all that money out, started dropping money out of helicopters. And that money's out there. Now it's probably just parked and just waiting. And that's when you look at something called money, the velocity of M2. Is it moving? And it's kind of flatlined. So this is all that money that's out there. Is it circulating? Well, it was circulating pretty good from 22 up to 23, and now it's just kind of level. So maybe there'll be some things that happen that make that start to take off. We don't know. Maybe we'll have quantitative easing. If things really get bad and we end up into a recession and unemployment starts creeping up, based on history, that we'll see quantitative easing yet once again, and rates will come down. Okay, that's good for mortgage rates. Where are housing prices going to be at that point? Well, keep your eye on homes right now that are on the market more than 120 days. Right now, we have 2,991 of them in our market. Okay. They've been sitting out there for 3 months, 4 months, and they're not moving. So have that list ready, cruise around, take a look at it. I get messages from viewers on this channel all the time saying, you won't believe the deal I got on this house. They were asking $525. I got it for $485. Said, man, I probably paid too much for it, but I don't know. I think I did pretty good. The deals are being had now. Maybe not enough to satisfy what you're looking for individually, but make sure that you're diving in the market to see if there are some opportunities out there. Because when I go through and look at some of the homes that are on for 120 days, I'm thinking, there are some homes out there under $300,000. They may be asking $305 right now, and they've been asking that for 3 months. That's not a $300,000 house anymore. How much of an interest rate do you need? How much of a reduction do you need before that home is now affordable? And is it in your neighborhood? So make sure that you're digging and searching and paying attention to it, because the headlines are always going to steer you wrong. What difference does it make that Zillow comes out and says we're going to be down 1.7% this year? Who cares? Because they weren't right last year. They weren't right last quarter. They don't match what Realtor.com says or what CoreLogic says or what Wells Fargo says. So you need to ignore all that news and just say, what's going on in my market and where are we? Where is inventory? What's the difference between our supply and our demand right now? Which way is it trending? What is the median sales price? Is it going in the direction I want? If I'm a seller, I don't want it to go down any further. If it looks like it's accelerating, what do I do with my home? Well, you're going to have to lower the price. How much do you need to lower? You need to have an aggressive talk with your realtor. Now, I know some of you have reached out to me and said, hey, take a look at this listing that I have and tell me how you think it's priced. I can't do that. If you're already listed with an agent, that's a severe ethics violation for me to comment. Of course, I have an opinion, and I'd love to say, you know what? Boy, that kitchen, I can't. Yeah, I think you're priced too high. But you already know that. If you've been on the market for 60 days and only 2 people have looked at it, you don't need a rocket scientist to sit down with you and tell you that your price is too high. People are seeing it. They're seeing it on Zillow. They're seeing it on Realtor.com. They're seeing it on your realtor's website. They're seeing it on the MLS. And there's something about it they don't like. They either don't like the price, or they don't like the style, or they don't like the condition, or a combination of all three. So if you don't think it's priced, ask yourself, what if I mark that house down to $100,000? How long would it take to sell? What? Sell it by breakfast. Well, there you go. Then it is price. But it's a tough pill to swallow for some people. So especially when the market's starting to turn like it is now, you've been kind of hanging in there because everybody was optimistic over January. Now it's starting to turn. You're at decision time now. It's not going to get better this summer. But there's a possibility that certain elements in our market could improve greatly by the end of summer. We don't know. We simply don't know. The only way we're going to know is to keep tracking the numbers and keep looking at it. If you're convinced the market's going to crash, then look at the numbers and look at the data and see if it's going in the direction that you think is going to be a monumental crash in real estate values. If you don't think it's going to crash and you have a target price, what is that target price? What is that target payment? How is your credit? How is your debt? Go ahead and meet with a lender way before you're thinking about buying and just say, hey, do a soft pull on my credit. Tell me where I'm at. Tell me what I could afford today. And let's talk about a game plan to buy next year. I'm seeing median home prices right now coming in at about 420,000. I'd really be interested in purchasing if that gets down to 390,000. Let's crunch some numbers and see what that looks like. Be prepared. And if you're prepared, you're not surprised and you're not disappointed. If you have any questions, shoot me an email, rick@rickhelps.com, and do me a favor. Use that subscribe button down below in the description to subscribe to my newsletter. It comes out every Monday morning where I go over these numbers in detail, and that'll help you in your real estate journey. Thanks for watching. Take care.